afternoon, everyone. My name is Kat Kastner. For those that I haven't met yet, I am our new Director of Communications. Good afternoon. We've got Coach Elko here to do a preseason press conference. I asked that if you do have a question, if you could stand up using one of the microphones on the side, say your name and affiliation just so I become familiar and just give Coach a refresher on each of you. So with that being said, Coach, why don't you begin with an opening statement?
Yeah, it's here. It's time. I don't really know what hasn't been talked about already at this point, but there's always a buzz in the air when you hit this moment. And kids report today, meetings start tonight, and tomorrow night we're on the field ready to roll. And so, obviously excited that we're healthy, that we've got everybody available and ready to roll. And I think this has an opportunity to build into something that could be a really special year. And so everybody says that. That's what this time of year is about. And so, we've got 30 days now to start the process of building the team that's capable of accomplishing the things that we want to accomplish. And so that's where we're at. So from there, we'll kind of open it up to questions. I will say this: you don't have to stand up. You can stay seated and mention your name, and we'll go from there.
David.
David Nuno, Texags. How different does it feel on the eve of the first practice this year as opposed to last year when everything was brand new and you're trying to put a roster and team together?
Yeah, I think it's a buildup. I think the eve is the eve. I think at this point it's all just excitement and energy. The buildup, I think, is you're starting to look into, okay, like these 30 days, what do we have to do? What do we have to accomplish? How are we going to go about it? How are we going to tailor this camp format to this group? I just think you're working with so much more knowledge. And we've talked about that a lot this offseason, but I just think you have such a better feel for what this group is capable of, what this group needs, where it needs to get better. And so you're able to kind of really go in with a tailored plan to attack it, right? And then the goal of camp, obviously, is to go out and stay healthy and get all of that accomplished.
Alex.
Alex Miller with the Bryan College Station Eagle. Mike, just thinking about this time a year ago all the way to now, with the offensive line, just what are been the biggest points of growth and development that you've seen from that unit coming in this time last year, maybe as a question mark, to now it looks like they're a strength of this team?
Yeah, obviously, I think in terms of mindset and how they play the game, there's been a massive shift. We've spoken about this a little bit, but just some of the little things, how hard we play, how we play to the whistle, are picking people up off the pile, are protecting our quarterback, are playing with a energy about how we finish plays. Those are the things that I look at as a coach. Obviously, there's a technical component of it, and that falls a lot more into Coach Cushing's lap. But I just think, we wanted the offensive line to be the heartbeat of our offense and to some degree of our team. And I think we're just getting closer and closer to doing that.
Coach, I'm Olin Buchanan with Texags. You can call me OB.
Okay.
At our event on Saturday, you mentioned, I think it was that Rylan Kennedy had added like 100 pounds of strength.
Yep.
I guess it's a two-part question. First of all, anybody else that comes off the top of your mind have made significant gains along those lines? And secondly, we hear about offensive linemen and other guys being better in their second year under a coach. Does that also apply to the strength and conditioning?
Yeah, I think so. I think to your second question first, I think just like coaching, there's a foundation of what training looks like. And there's a conditioning level, and there's a level at which you can push the body that, quite honestly, we weren't real good when we started in year one. And some of you guys were out here during winter workouts in the early stages when we got here, and our capacity to work was not real high. And so then because of that, you feel like you're playing catch up all the way through the winter, all the way through the summer, and you build it to the best you can. And then you come back in year two, and that strength and conditioning capacity starts at a higher level. And again, that leads to growth beyond. And so, I think that's really, really good. I think some of the other guys that have stood out Cassius Howell had a really strong summer. His body looks really, really good. Marcus Ratcliffe, I think, has really done a phenomenal job in the weight room. Really excited about him. And then you just even go down to like some young kids. I was talking to TK Norman the other day. Like TK Norman has put on 20 pounds and all kinds of muscle. That's 20 pounds of body weight since he got here. He showed up at 165. He's 185 right now. And so I think when you look at some of those things, everybody says this, right? And so I don't want to be cliche, but we're a bigger, faster, stronger team. Now we got to go play football, and we got to play football well.
Tony Catalina, Austin American Statesman. Coach, you had talked about everyone's ready to go. Just wanted to confirm and be specific with that. Is there anybody who's going to be out first day, or is everyone really good to go for first practice?
No, everybody's really ready to go first practice. Yeah, so we're excited. I think Marcus Garcia is the one kid that's nursing a little something that we'll kind of see where that goes. But other than that, I think we're good to go.
Coach Parker Ream with Fox 44. Just thinking about expectations for that first day of fall practice tomorrow. What do you expect? What do you want to see out of the team? And I mean, I guess it's not going to be as clean as you want it to be, but what are you hoping for?
Yeah, it's a unique world nowadays because I guess it was 3 years ago now that they changed the summer, and so we're allowed to do more skill development in the summer, and some of that stuff contains a football, and so I think you have a much better feel today going into practice number one than you did 4 years ago, certainly than you did 14 years ago. It hasn't been that long since you've been around the guys with a football. And so our expectation is that we go out and we set the tone for what we want execution to look like. We have what we call championship execution that we grade on both sides of the ball every practice, grade on special teams as well. And so, we have certain markers that we try to hit that we identify to be championship level practice. And we have expectations that we'll hit those day one, and to whatever areas we don't, then that gives us areas to improve.
Howdy, Coach. Rob Havens with Aggie Land Illustrated. So you lose Le'Veon Moss late in the season, and that was a big hit. How important is it to keep him healthy and getting Ruben back at full strength, and how important is it just for the overall part of the team?
Yeah, I think health matters. I think keeping our best players healthy for the course of the year plays a role. And I think when you look back at last year, I think you were the one positive on the injury front were you didn't have a lot of soft tissue injuries. You didn't have a lot of things happen in practice. So for the most part, the things that happened without your ability to control them, and that as a coach is really important. You hope that maybe some of those breaks change a little bit this year with some of the guys that we lost in game. We lost Mark Nebu real early for a real long period of time. We lost Tyreek Chappelle to a freak thing for a real long period of time. Losing Le'Veon at the end, losing Ruben in the beginning. We had some guys go down to some freak things. Usually those things balance themselves out over time, and so hopefully we're ready for a good run of luck. We certainly could use one of those for a season here at Texas A&M.
Back corner.
Coach Chip Howard from The Zone. Two things. Number one, how'd you spend your birthday yesterday?
So birthdays change a little bit over the years apparently, and so I worked. I went to take my daughter to get her new car because she needed a car, and that was my last day to take her to go do it. So I used up quite a bit of time at Aggie Land Chevrolet. Thanks to all the good people over there at Aggie Land Chevrolet. Quick plug. And then went down and did some things with the house that we're still trying to finish so that my wife can actually move into the house here sometime soon. And so, all of that summed up into one heck of a birthday yesterday.
How do you balance having your team in shape and ready for the opening game, but not losing their legs while you're trying to get them there?
Yeah, we do a lot with science to do that. I think nowadays The body can tell you a lot. We do a lot of what we call force plate jumps to measure force explosion. We do a lot of stuff on a NOR to measure power and power balance throughout the body. We're constantly monitoring how much distance we're traveling in practice to make sure that that's on par with what it needs to be. And so I think there's a lot more that goes into that than maybe in the past. In the past, it was always feel, right? Like you as the coach were just trying to feel your way through it. I think now there's a lot more science that goes into that. And, so obviously Coach Moffitt and his team stay close and pay close attention to wherever those spikes or valleys come from and making sure we stay on board with that.
Mike, Robert Sessions Eagle. Last year you went into fall camp knowing you're going to play Notre Dame early. Looking back, was that maybe a good thing? And now you're at the point where it's more about you situation. Don't matter who you play that opener.
No, listen, we're going to be as excited for UTSA in the home opener as we were for Notre Dame in the home opener, because it's an opportunity to go out on Kyle Field and play a meaningful game against somebody for the first time in 9 months. And so that's going to matter. I think, we know what the schedule looks like 1 to 12, and so however you shuffle the deck of 1 to 12, we know we've got to get ourselves ready to play really good football for a long period of time to be successful in the SEC. And so however you shake the early games, I do think there's an understanding of what it takes to get ready to play football in this conference. And, and obviously nothing is ever going to be handed to us. We learned that lesson last year. We've learned that lesson quite a bit. And so, our focus will be on the opener like it should be, like it is for everyone.
Carter Carls, 247 Sports. Mike, Marcel seemed to have a pretty busy offseason with off-the-field stuff, like he had the Manning Academy, worked with the Houston organ donors at the hospital there, and took his teammates on a private jet to his camp. Just wondering, kind of from your observation, what he's like off the field and what makes sort of his off-the-field qualities good for being a leader of this team.
Yeah, I think he's got a kind of a magnetic personality. I think that's a really good starting point. I think in order to, we define leadership as your ability to get people to follow you, right? That's what leading is. If you're leading and no one's following you, you're not actually doing anything. And so part of that is your ability to connect and relate to people. And I think he's got a really magnetic personality that allows him to connect and relate to his teammates. And I think that draws it around. I think in terms of his off season, I think that's very normal nowadays. I think the difference nowadays is you guys see it all. I think back in the days, guys could move and do different things. The Manning Academy is something you want your quarterback at. You've got probably a little bit of a problem if your quarterback's not going to that. Obviously, last year was a little different because of injury, but if you've got a returning quarterback, you'd really love for him to get invited, and the opportunity to go there and learn from those guys is something you want to take advantage of. And so, we dealt with that with Riley Leonard at Duke. That's just kind of a pretty standard thing nowadays.
Anything else for Coach?
Just speaking of Marcel, you guys in the spring had talked about how he wanted to get his weight up. Now that preseason camp is here, is he at the weight that you guys had hoped he could get to, and just the work he put in to maybe get there?
Yeah, he's close. I think he's got probably a natural metabolism that I wish I had in terms of keeping his ability to put it all on. But, he's close. He's close to where we want him.
So, Coach, SEC Media Days, A&M is kind of flying under the radar. I mean, we're as much talent as this team has. Do you kind of like that? Do you kind of like the fact that it's not the high expectations? This is your, do you kind of like flying under the radar a little bit, and then you get to, as Leon O'Neal says, wake them up this season?
Wow. I'm sorry, that was a blast. How you doing, Leon? I'm sure you're watching this somewhere. Yeah, I honestly, I don't care. I mean, if the expectations are there, we've got to go out and perform. If we're flying under the radar, we got to go out and perform. Like, I know what this team's capable of. And so, we plan on going out and doing the things that we need to do. I think if last year at this time I would have stood on this podium and told you we're going to be first place in the SEC going into November, and not finish the job and everyone's going to be disappointed about it, you would have been like, no, you won't. There's no way you'll be the last undefeated team in the SEC. And so, we got to go play. That's what we got to go do.
To the right.
What was your first impression of KC when you went against him a couple years ago, and has he lived up to everything you hoped he'd be?
Yeah, what an unbelievable playmaker. When we went up against him as a freshman, he was really doing it all. He was lining up as a slot. They were running a lot of vertical go balls with him, and he was having a lot of success doing that. Then they were bringing him into the backfield and handing him the ball as a running back. They were doing jet sweep stuff with him. He was really just a guy that they were trying to put in position to impact the game as a true freshman, and that obviously stood out. And he was a guy that we paid a lot of attention to, and when we played him because of that. And then, I think he's absolutely lived up to it. I think his work ethic, his professionalism, and his ability to impact the game is exactly what we had hoped it would be when we recruited him here. And so I think he's ready to go on and have a really, really big year this year for us.
Anything else for Coach?
Good.
Thank you. We
Thank
will
you,
have
guys.
Trey next.